So if you look at an ancient 7th century Chinese prophecy, and then you look at the 1st century Christian book of Revelation, you actually find the exact same line of code predicting the end of an era.
Right, which is just wild to think about.
It really is. It's a rider on a white horse holding a bow.
Yeah.
Two completely different, theological operating systems separated by centuries and continents, yet they output the exact same visual archetype for this massive global paradigm shift.
Exactly. And today we're not just looking at these ancient texts as, like, historical curiosities.
No, definitely not.
We are looking at a modern framework that claims this rider isn't coming in some distant abstract future. He's actually been quietly gathering power since 2022.
Which is a huge claim.
Oh, it's a bold claim. And usually when you hear something like that, the instinct is to immediately write it off as standard apocalyptic fear-mongering, you know?
Yeah, the classic doomsday stuff.
Right. But when you actually dig into the sources we're synthesizing for this deep dive, you find something far more structured. It's really psychologically grounded.
Yeah, we aren't looking at vague doomsday predictions here. We're examining a highly specific narrative of how new epochs are built step by step.
Which is exactly what we're going to unpack today.
Right. So for you listening, we have an incredibly eclectic stack of sources to get through.
We really do.
First, we've got a translated transcript from a YouTube channel called Dark Star Watch. And that details the cosmic gifts of an Eastern archetype known as the Ziwei Star.
Oh, purple star.
Exactly.
That's
The
so
second,
tough.
we have a very specific runic tarot reading that maps out a strict 5-year chronological timeline from 2022 to 2026.
That timeline is fascinating.
It's so specific. And finally, we have this striking visual and textual evidence linking the ancient Chinese Tuibei prophecy straight to the biblical 4 horsemen.
What makes this collection of sources so compelling is the synthesis of spirit and matter. I mean, we're looking at a cross-cultural phenomenon where entirely separate mystical frameworks are pointing to the exact same archetype.
Right, the same imagery.
Yeah, and a shared countdown to a completely new global reality.
But before we get to the countdown itself, we really need to define the entity or the energy that we're actually tracking here.
Yes, definitely.
So in traditional Eastern astrology, the Ziwei Star, the purple star, is basically the emperor star. It represents a supreme leader, a sage, or a savior figure destined to guide humanity into a new civilization.
And historically, when we hear savior figure, we tend to picture someone deeply ascetic,
Right, for sure. Like a passive philosopher meditating on a mountaintop.
Exactly. Someone completely detached from the physical world, just pure spiritual energy.
Right, the classic trope where enlightenment requires total poverty and detachment.
Yeah, but the Dark Star Watch transcript entirely upends that expectation.
It really does.
It asks what the universe's ultimate, most extravagant gift to this Ziwei Star would actually be to accomplish a global mission. And the answer isn't some nebulous spiritual blessing.
No, it's not.
It's absolute tangible material control. It's the creation right to physically mold reality.
Okay, let's unpack this, because that concept of a highly spiritual figure wielding immense material power almost feels like a contradiction.
It does sound like one at first.
Right. The source uses 3 specific tarot archetypes to map out this cosmic arsenal, starting with the King of Pentacles.
Ah, yes.
Now, we all know the King of Pentacles is the ultimate earth energy, extreme wealth, stability, resource attraction. So are we just saying this cosmic savior is basically a billionaire hedge fund manager?
I mean, I think framing it as mere wealth kind of misses the underlying mechanism the source is getting at.
Okay, how so?
Well, it's not about accumulating capital for the sake of luxury. It's about resource gravity.
Resource gravity, I like that.
The text explicitly says that wherever this Ziwei Star energy goes, a new physical reality is formed. Pure idealism without resources usually just gets crushed by existing power structures.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the King of Pentacles represents the ability to anchor visionary ideas into concrete infrastructure.
Yeah.
It's about rebooting human civilization through tangible things. We're talking about new energy technologies, new logistical systems.
Right, so their words and actions translate into genuine, undeniable material changes. They're actually building a foundation for a new era.
Exactly.
So it's less about a daydreaming mystic and more about, like, a cosmic CEO.
A cosmic CEO, that's a great way to put it.
An architect who doesn't just inspire people, but actually pulls in the raw materials needed to construct a new paradigm.
Precisely. But raw materials are useless without a mechanism to transform them.
Right.
That's where the source's second archetype comes in, which is the magician.
Oh, the magician.
Yeah. If the King of Pentacles is the foundation, the Magician is the engine of alchemy. The Magician commands the four elements: fire, wind, water, and earth.
So they have the tools.
Right. In this context, the text explains that the universe gives this figure the ultimate integrative power of inspiration, will, emotion, and physical form.
There's a line in the transcript that really stuck with me. It says, "The Ziwei Star doesn't follow rules, they create the rules."
Yes, that's a powerful statement.
They turn thought into destiny and chaos into order. It's the ability to literally pull a new reality out of thin air.
It really is.
But I have to push back a little here.
Sure.
When you combine absolute material dominance with the reality-bending power to create your own rules, how does that not just devolve into standard historical megalomania?
That is the big question.
Right. Like, what keeps this energy aligned with a savior archetype rather than just another dictator?
Well, that's the critical tension, isn't it? And it's exactly why the Cosmic Toolkit has a third component, which is the Ace of Swords. The source describes this not as a weapon of conquest, but as a cosmic guide to action. It's the sword of truth. It provides clear insight and divine decisiveness.
A surgical tool, basically.
Yes, exactly. The universe doesn't just grant this reality-warping power. It demands a distinct, era-defining path be cut for humanity.
I see.
The Ace of Swords represents the refusal to just go with the flow or tolerate the ambiguity of a corrupt system. It's the mechanism used to slice through the old paradigm.
So you have the material grounding of the pentacles, the alchemy of the magician, and the uncompromising truth of the swords.
That's a triad.
But wielding that kind of multi-dimensional reality-bending power comes with massive friction. I mean, reality has inertia.
It absolutely does.
You don't just snap your fingers, wave an Ace of Swords around, and instantly rewrite global civilization overnight.
No, of course not.
A shift of that magnitude requires an incubation period.
Which naturally brings us to the timeline.
Yes, let's get into the timeline.
The abstract archetype has to become a grounded narrative of manifestation, and our sources provide a remarkably specific one.
Yeah, they do.
It's a runic tarot spread, so a Norse mythology-themed deck, laying out a strict 5-year chronological map from 2022 to 2026.
And what I find so fascinating about this timeline is that it starts entirely in the shadows.
Right.
2022 is represented by the Two of Swords, specifically in the reversed position. Now, we know the Two of Swords upright is about stalemate, being blocked, wearing a blindfold, but reversed, the blindfold comes off.
It's the cognitive dissonance of breaking out of the matrix.
Oh, I like that.
The text notes that 2022 wasn't a public emergence, it was an internal awakening. The moment of piercing through the surrounding chaos, ending an intense inner struggle, and making the definitive decision to face destiny.
Which is the necessary prerequisite for any massive external action. I mean, you can't restructure the world if you're still lying to yourself about your own nature.
Exactly.
So the blindfold comes off in 2022, and then in 2023, the timeline assigns the King of Pentacles upright.
And notice how that perfectly aligns with the cosmic arsenal we just discussed.
Right. The text defines 2023 as a period of silent cultivation.
Yeah, there's no rushing a public stage, no grand declarations of leadership.
None of that. It's a phase of quietly accumulating strength, gathering those literal and metaphorical resources, and building a solid material foundation completely behind the scenes.
It's a logistical phase. I mean, if you are preparing to challenge a global paradigm, you need an invisible infrastructure before the world even knows you exist.
Makes a couple sense.
That silent consolidation in 2023 sets the stage for 2024, which is represented by the Emperor card.
Now, the Emperor is a major arcana card, so we're talking about a massive structural shift in weight and energy.
A huge shift.
But the text describes 2024 as an internal coronation. Authority is established, the leadership structure is solidified, and a silent restructuring of order begins to take place within a specific circle.
Right. It's the transition from an individual actor to a systemic force, even if the public is still completely oblivious.
The architecture of the new world is locked into place.
But, and this is key, to build a new structure on an occupied lot, you first have to demolish what's currently standing there.
Oh, here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
The card pulled for 2025 is the Four of Wands. Now, anyone who knows tarot knows the Four of Wands is traditionally the homecoming card. It's celebration, community, a wedding canopy.
Normally, yes.
But this specific runic deck brutally subverts that expectation. The imagery on the card is literally a burning Viking ship.
A funeral pyre. It's the ultimate ritual of transition.
Yes. The source interprets this as the fiery destruction of the old self and the old paradigm to prepare for rebirth.
It's necessary destruction.
The text notes that in 2025, the public might finally see the fire, meaning the massive disruptions, the signals, the institutional decay. But they won't yet see the exact force or the person orchestrating the transition behind the flames.
The psychological progression here perfectly mirrors the sociological stages of societal collapse and rebirth.
How so?
Well, you move from internal realization in 2022 to resource gathering in 2023 to structural authority in 2024 to the absolute necessity of destruction in 2025.
Right. The fire.
The old institutions just have to be consumed by fire before the new ones can be illuminated.
It makes me think of a caterpillar inside a chrysalis.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Right. To the outside observer, the chrysalis just looks like a static, dead shell. But inside, the caterpillar is completely dissolving into literal goo. It's violently deconstructing its own biology.
Yeah, it's a complete meltdown.
To the cells inside, 2025 feels like an apocalypse, a burning ship. But it's the only physical way a butterfly can be forged.
That is the perfect biological equivalent to what this timeline is describing on a societal level. The friction of change is always destructive to the preceding form.
Which brings us to the climax of the countdown, 2026.
The sun.
Yes, the card is the sun. Absolute radiance, public manifestation, and undeniable truth. The text says all the shadows dissipate, the burning ship finishes its work, and this figure or movement steps fully into the public eye.
The chrysalis breaks.
Exactly. The butterfly is in the sun, bringing undeniable hope.
It is the moment of arrival. But I think we need to apply some friction here.
Okay, let's do it.
It is very easy to look at a modern tarot reading, see a neat 5-year narrative, and write it off as an isolated piece of esoteric confirmation bias.
Sure. Like someone just projecting a narrative onto random cards.
Exactly. If this is truly a universal archetype of human transition, we should be seeing this exact same chronological pattern, or at least the exact same final manifestation in other historical texts.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is the leap that takes us from a fascinating tarot spread to something that honestly gave me goosebumps.
It's pretty wild.
Our final sources pinpoint this exact 2026 emergence, but they link the imagery of this Eastern Ziwei Star to the most famous Western prophecy in human history.
The alignment is staggering.
It really is.
Let's look at the mechanics of the Eastern prophecy first. The text cites the Ziwei 2, which is a 7th century Chinese prophecy book. It predicts the future of the world through a series of highly cryptic poems and illustrations, and the source points us specifically to the 44th image.
And the 44th image of the Ziwei 2 features a savior figure arriving to guide humanity, characterized specifically as a young man with a bow.
An archer.
Yes, an archer. Hold that image in your mind. Because incredibly, the source material shows this perfectly mirrors the Christian Bible's book of Revelation.
Yeah, when you examine Revelation 6, specifically the description of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the very first horseman, the catalyst who arrives to conquer and usher in the collapse of the old age, is described as a rider on a white horse. Right. And he is holding a bow.
So what does this all mean? We have ancient Chinese esoterica and first-century Christian theology 2 frameworks that developed in total isolation from one another, using the exact same highly specific visual code. Guy on a white horse with a bow.
It's incredible.
We actually have a visual source provided for this, is a striking illustration of the 4 horsemen, and the symbology woven into it is just dense.
Let's break down the mechanics of that image. In the foreground, charging over this fractured, burning landscape, which, by the way, looks an awful lot like the aftermath of our 2025 burning Viking ship, is the first rider.
Yes.
He is mounted on a brilliantly white horse, a universal symbol for purity of intent, uncompromising truth, and a righteous, cleansing conquest.
And he's wearing a white robe, but draped over his shoulder is a vibrant purple sash.
Ah, the purple sash.
Right. Considering we are talking about the Eastern Ziwei Star, literally translating to the Purple Star, that is a massive visual bridge connecting the 2 prophecies.
It ties it all together perfectly.
He's also wearing a golden crown, representing that grounded emperor authority we saw established in the 2024 tarot timeline. And of course, he is holding a bow raised high toward the sky.
The weapon itself is what we really need to analyze here.
Okay, yeah.
We talked earlier about the Ziwei Star wielding the Ace of Swords as a truth-cutting power. But an archer operates on a completely different mechanical level than a swordsman.
Right. A sword implies close-quarters combat. It's immediate, it's messy, and it's highly localized. You have to be standing right next to the thing you're trying to cut down.
Exactly. But a bow A bow represents delayed gratification and kinetic potential energy.
Oh, that's interesting.
An archer strikes from a distance outside the immediate fray. It symbolizes incredible foresight and intention. You draw the string back, creating immense invisible tension, and then you launch an idea or a movement into the future.
Wow.
It strikes targets and pierces through defenses long before the establishment even realizes the archer is on the battlefield.
I love that concept of the drawn bowstring representing kinetic tension. It perfectly maps back to the tarot timeline.
It really does.
Think about it, 2022 to 2024. The internal awakening, the silent cultivation of resources, the invisible establishment of authority. That entire 3-year period is just the archer slowly, silently pulling the bowstring back.
Yes. And 2025, the burning Viking ship is the friction of the release. Exactly. The arrow flying through the air, disrupting the atmosphere, signaling that the weapon has been fired, even if the target hasn't been struck yet.
Until 2026, the sun. The arrow hits dead center. The new paradigm arrives.
It is a profound metaphor.
Yeah.
It's fascinating how these multiple, disconnected cultural frameworks leverage the exact same mechanical archetype of the archer to signify the ultimate catalyst for a new age.
Yeah, East and West converging.
Exactly. In the East, it's the young man with a bow from the Ziwei Star. In the West, it's the White Rider from Revelation. Both represent a force that initiates a massive planetary transition.
It bridges the gap between ancient spiritual myth and the modern, impending 2026 timeline we've been tracking.
It really requires you to step back and look at the sheer scale of what we've unpacked today.
It's massive. We started by defining the cosmic reality-bending toolkit of the Ziwei Star. Not a passive monk, but the ultimate materializer who uses the elements like a magician and resources like a king of pentacles to literally build a new physical reality.
Energy technology, new civilization infrastructure, all of it.
Exactly. Then we track the mechanics of how that reality is actually built through the runic tarot timeline.
Waking up in 2022.
Gathering resources in the shadows in 2023. Silently taking the crown of authority in 2024. Utilizing the necessary fiery destruction of the old world in 2025. And finally stepping into the sun's radiance in 2026.
And we culminated with that mind-bending cross-cultural link where an ancient Chinese archer and the biblical white horse rider turned out to be the exact same archetype of global transformation.
And for you listening, I think the true value of this deep dive lies beyond the literal interpretation of the prophecies.
I can completely agree.
Whether you view this as a supernatural event coming true, or simply as a fascinating sociological study of human psychological archetypes, it is incredibly revealing.
It really highlights how human beings instinctively use myth to anticipate and process massive cultural shifts.
Right. The fact that different cultures independently arrived at the exact same sequence of symbols suggests a shared, hardwired human intuition about how old eras collapse and how new ones are born.
It provides an incredible, almost sobering lens through which to view the sheer velocity of the changes happening in our world right now.
It really does. As we rapidly approach that 2026 marker, you can almost feel the tension in the bowstring snapping taut.
You certainly can, and the source material actually leaves us with a parting challenge regarding that very tension.
Oh, right.
At the end of the tarot reading text, the author offers 2 paths for the reader's further exploration.
What were they again?
Well, path A is revealing the true physical appearance of this figure, but path B is far more immediate and, frankly, far more relevant to where we are right now.
Revealing the trigger event for their arrival.
Yes, the opportunity of descent. The text asks what massive event, what undeniable signal will actually precipitate this arrival.
So as you go about your day, I want you to think about the mechanics of that 2025 burning Viking ship card.
We are standing right on the precipice of that year.
We really are. If a massive world-changing archetype, a white rider, a Ziwei Star, is truly set to emerge into the sun in 2026, what do you think that fiery signal in 2025 will actually look like? It's a heavy question. What institutions need to burn? What old paradigms need to collapse to create the necessary funeral pyre for our modern world? Keep your eyes open. The arrow's already in the air.